All right, what's up, man?
Not much, man. How are you?
Not a lot, same old. Just gonna be us two tonight. Coach Waleed's busy tonight, but we're gonna get at it again as usual every other Monday. So Michele, anything new going on over on your end?
Yeah, we're in a holding pattern. Two big things. The first thing is that waiting on administrative stuff to get rolling so that we can start up at the College of Worcester. So I told you about that, right?
That's where you're doing like the baseball assessments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So the hard part is it's kind of like hurry up and wait because of COVID and everything else, you know.
Uh-huh.
Only staff and students are allowed on campus. So it's been really tough trying to get me it just that they're taking a lot of extra precaution to get things um with onboarding new employees and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since I'm going to be
I'd say the
go ahead.
colleges are the athletics are really diving that down stuff serious. We actually have some guys home now.
Mm,
We have an athlete or two home now as everything's online with classes, and they actually figure they'll get better training off season at home than they would in the facility, just because they have the strict protocol. If
yeah.
one athlete gets a case or a suspected case, then the weight room shut down for 2 weeks, and so you could have 2 weeks out, come back for a day, another case, you're out
Yeah.
for a month. So we have a couple guys home. Just figure it's more productive to get it done on their own.
Yeah, it just sucks, man. I mean, thank God it seems that things are improving and we should be on the other end of it, no matter what you think, you
Yeah.
know. It seems like, hopefully things are on the upswing. So, and then hopefully they'll stay there for good. But the point, the moral of the story is that, we're putting together our protocols, procedures. I'm checking my metrics, what I'm going to record for that, or what I'm going to do for that. um so that's really big, and then otherwise we are getting things up and running at that other place in Philly, Route 250 Health and Performance, where that's where the primary portion of my caseload is. So, and as you know, and hopefully as people who listen to this are getting the impression that this crosstalk, this cross pollination that Mike and Waleed and I like to do, um, hopefully it's starting to come off as we intend. Meaning that I like to spend some time coaching on the floor because it gives me the opportunity to understand better of what athletes are going back towards, what they're getting back into. So that's the big thing. And as a part of that, my platform, Fuel Move Recover, on the Advancing Athletics website, that's where we do our podcasts, our blog. Like this week, I'm actually going to be talking about mental imagery and all these other things. I have a dietitian that works with me, another physio who works with me, and we're about to bring on a second nutritionist, a dietitian. And just to for people who are curious or don't know the difference, a dietitian the is a nutrition specialist or a nutritionist, but who has medical training, academic training, and is licensed by the state of Ohio. So not only can they talk with like our athletes, but they can also talk with people who have like specific conditions and whatnot. But anyways, so we're bringing her on. Her name is Allie. She's great. And so we're actually going to be doing a Q&A here soon. We're going to launch that. By the time you guys all see this, the audience sees this, we'll have already launched that. That's something that actually Mike and I talked about putting together to help out our athletes at Canton Barbell too.
Yeah, yeah. I think we definitely would have some interest in that with any of our clientele, really. Like I told you earlier, obviously I'll help people with strategies for figuring about the type of protein they should have,
Yeah.
whether it's, our general pop looking for fat loss, or a lot of our, skinnier teenage boy athletes looking to put it on.
Mhm.
I can help a lot with that, but some of the stuff we talked about earlier, not only would I not do it, it's not legal for me to,
Yeah.
dive
Yeah.
into some of that condition, prescribing diets for conditions. I
Yeah.
wouldn't do it because I don't know much about it. And also because it's not legal without that,
Yeah.
or that registered dietitian by your name.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think we would definitely have some interest in that. A lot of our general pop, will talk to me about some things. And again, I kind of talk around general strategies, but I can't, speak to certain
Oh.
conditions when it comes to diet. So that could definitely be a good resource for us
Yeah.
here.
And I mean, it's the same thing, Mike, that you do a good job of with your correctives and like musculoskeletal, conditions and issues and stuff like that. We don't need you to be a PT, a PT, you collaborate with a PT.
Mhm.
We need you to be able to be the front line, because you see your clients a hell of a lot more often than I see your clients. Even when they're hurt and we have to initiate an episode of care, you know, usually the way that I practice is we like to put a tail on it. So we'll start, we'll start, maybe once or twice a week, every week for a month or so, depending on what the issue is, maybe 2 months, whatever. And then we'll slowly go, from 2 times a week to once a week to once every other week to once a month. So I might see somebody over 6 months, but I'm only seeing them a dozen times. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Just to make sure that they're mastering all the things that we have implemented. Well, who helps them master all these things that we implement? That's you. That's the coach. So I think as long as you're not pretending to be a PT or trying to mislead people, which obviously you're not.
Sure.
The same thing goes for being a dietitian. Getting people to understand the value and the importance of your fuel, it can only benefit everybody.
Right. Yeah. My biggest thing too is like when I'm working around issues like that is 99 times out of 100, it's, collaborating. Like I can help them reach that spot, but whether it is
Yeah.
with eating or, uh, you know, um, reducing pain, is just kind of working together and finding strategies that work, whether it's, oh, this doesn't hurt, okay, great, or this works for me
Yeah.
consistently with my nutrition, great. It's just kind of finding what works for that person, kind of, like a soft trial and error with certain things.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of things, people. We have several clients that a couple examples off the top of my head that have these minor knee issues. And for me, the best thing we could do is there's always ways to work around that. So we have a lot of people that struggle in that deep knee flexion, so we just box squat with the more hip
Yeah.
dominant, and it works, and it feels almost always, they'll say, okay, that feels good, let's do that. Like split squats, a simple shift onto the front foot, making it more glute dominant, boom, feels
Yeah.
better. So we'll just do that. Like I said, I would rather spend time on the floor getting at something than, from my perspective, fiddling around, guessing forever on what your issue is when I don't, have the backing to really, figure it out and how to fix it.
And also, again, Mike, that's not your job. That's
Right.
not why people are paying you.
Mm-hmm.
You have customers. They are obviously, we care deeply for them, but we have to keep the lights on. We run businesses here.
Yep.
Your goal, your expertise is in knowing how to do exactly what you just explained so well. And that if something doesn't work one way, let's try to flip it and work the other way, or let's make a tiny shift. That's not you going outside your scope of practice. That's just you being a good coach. And I'm not saying that you were thinking that you were going outside of your scope of practice, but what you're saying right now simply illustrates the actions of a good coach.
Yeah, it's wild just staying like really simple in your scope, how far that actually goes. Like I think, and I probably did a little bit of it when I first started, but you almost try to over impress with your knowledge if you're, no matter what area you're in. But people seriously just care about like the result, like the product, the result, the end game that you're delivering. People talk about if I watch webinars on like the business end of gyms and selling, it's wild how, you really don't need to over impress. You just need to show them that very simple product or service, the product being the results that they're after. So I actually haven't, and it's not that I like refuse to do it or anything. I just don't think to anymore. When somebody comes in for a consult or a meeting, it doesn't even come up really to mention that I have my bachelor's in exercise science. It's not like the first thing I think to throw out there.
Yeah.
I try to just present our system, learn about them, and usually that's enough whether they're in or not.
Yeah, and remember that the education simply provides some context for your knowledge. Now that's not the same for me because I have to have a doctorate level training in order to have the license that I do to be board certified. But that's the thing, is that complements, that goes well together, because people pay me for my expertise. People pay me. Now I got to be a good coach or else I'm going to lose a lot of people.
Right.
I have to know how to implement cues, movement corrections, internal versus externally attentional cues. It's understand the foundations of, programming and, all these things that are like in like strength training 101, performance coaching 101. But the primary thing that people pay me for is my expertise. This hurts. What should I do about it? This hurts. Is it okay? Or this like kind of sore, is it okay for me to continue what I'm doing? And if not, then what are possible alternatives? Or how do I fix this? And then they go away. Think about that. I see people once or twice a week. Whereas, and that's at most. Whereas for you, that's probably like average, right? And some people are more often than that. Obviously, it depends on the individual's plan, but
yeah. I mean, 2 to 4 for us usually. So
exactly. So your typical minimum, is at the top of my maximum, because I'll say this now, I can remember I've been practicing PT since 2014. Yeah. Plus a couple years as a student before then. And so however long that's been, 7 years. Yeah. So 7 years. And I can remember one kid that I've seen more than twice in a week. And the reason why was because he hurt his back. They had some kind of thing, Mike. It was like an ROTC, but for firefighters.
Okay.
At his college that he was doing. So some kind of student volunteer fire force, And so the thing was that every time he put his oxygen tank on his back hurt. Well, of course he comes in because we were so trusted at Momentum Physical Therapy in Milford, Massachusetts, where I worked before moving back to Northeast Ohio. And so his mom wanted him to get PT here. Well, of course she waited until after Christmas. So I only had half the time before we went back. And so in order to maximize the benefit, the potential, we decided to go 3 days a week for like 3 weeks, just to it was almost a conditioning program with, a one-on-one conditioning program with like a PT's eyes on you, Dude, that's literally the only time I ever remember going 3 times a week. Now, if you're just post-op and there's a lot of like hands-on stuff, like that's more justifiable, but for most overuse musculoskeletal conditions, it's like 2 times a week is plenty. The point being is that look at the volume of contacts that I have with a client versus what you have with a client. That's why I think the best practice is for me to practice out of gyms like Canton Barbell or Route 250 Health and Performance. And it's because of the continuity of care. The last thing we want is somebody to have a shoulder issue. They could still squat, but they're perseverating. They're so hung up on their shoulder issue that they start not coming to their sessions, and then eventually they just quit. They just drop out, which unfortunately happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Because
And
some
you
people
can,
just
yeah.
view the glass half full instead of half empty. What were you
Yeah.
going to say?
Well, and you can see directly too, if we're talking about at 250 or with us, you can see, in an actual performance setting. You know what I mean? Like, and I know
Yeah.
that's what you do very active physical therapy, if
Yeah.
that would be a way to describe it, but you can kind
Mhm.
of see directly how it affects, as opposed to, just floss bands or everything, which have their place, but, you can actually see how what you do translates into function, with,
Yeah.
what they want to do in real performance, real
Yeah.
full human movement. Um, I'm willing to bet, speaking back to the education, I'm willing to bet you're a lot like me, even though physical therapy is more practical in kind of the formal education setting. Like you probably had some
Mhm.
type of clinical or, um, whatever they would call it then. But I know for me, all the most valuable knowledge came from just doing it. So you
Yeah.
probably have learned, I would be willing to bet a lot of what your best education has come from working with real people.
Well, dude, a lot of my best education, as you know, the audience doesn't know, but like I have my master's degree in biomechanics and motor behavior. That's
Mm-hmm.
completely unrelated
Yeah.
to physical therapy. So I originally was going down the coaching route. I was a high school football coach. I did strength conditioning coaching. I worked at Athletes Performance. I did an internship with Athletes Performance. That's what they used to be called. Now they're called Exos. That's where a lot of people do their combine training. That's actually where Saquon Barkley and OBJ are currently training at Exos. I think probably in LA or Phoenix, one of the two. So that's where I cut my teeth, Mike. Was that coaching environment? You know what I mean? Is actually getting after. And then I decided this would to that, um, would be the PT education and then the ability to help people. So then, you know, um, obviously my coaching skills have really eroded because I haven't been doing that for the last whatever, however many years I just laid out, like 10 years. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
I
So,
started PT school 10 years ago.
yeah.
So
So you actually went the opposite way of me. Then I went into the PT focus in exercise science. Didn't make that first cut the first year, and I just didn't really have a desire to wait another year or try it again. So kind of got into the training certificates and all that, and kind of sprouted into here. So we kind of went
yeah,
opposite ways
right.
there.
And
Yeah.
then look how we
Yeah.
kind of cross again. Because again, the two complement each other. You know what I
Definitely.
mean? Like, dude, the best thing that ever happened to me was I got turned down to physician assistant school because I was a biology major in undergrad. So I originally thought, I don't know, maybe I want to be a biology teacher, science teacher in high school, coach
Mm-hmm.
high school football. Then I really started liking it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe a PA, that'd be fun, do surgery, get hands on, I could do sports med, that kind of stuff. Applied there, didn't get in anywhere.
Yeah.
And I was actually the number one person, the last person not in on the last person that didn't get in at Rutgers in New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So if one more person would have declined or dropped out or chosen a different school, would have been a whole different, we wouldn't be sitting here, I don't think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that was the best, but that was ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me because now I'm on the path that I am now,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And I'd
I,
say the same thing with my with my one PT school interview I went to. Like I said, if I get in there and go, then there's no Canton Barbell, and I don't work for myself, and so it definitely
yeah.
worked itself out.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know what I mean? It just, and we're not like overly, like I'm pretty bubbly as anyone who's listened to the show or knows me in person. I'm pretty chatty like this, extroverted and whatnot. And so, this, this, so I sometimes come off as kind of rah, might be the football guy in me too,
Mm-hmm.
but but really though, that really shows how like kind of like just keep grinding and keep moving forward really is super, super powerful, which again, that kind of goes back to the simplification aspect of how these two concepts tie together, because instead you could just continue to add more fluff and continue to add more crap. And obviously you, the audience, have to realize that this is a little bit of us, like kind of like, uh, putting ourselves out there on YouTube, on Instagram, in order so you can get to know us better, because there's a lot of snake oil that gets sold, but also like that's how much Mike and I and Waleed enjoy this stuff, is that we're willing to talk about it at 8:00 at night after we spend all day talking about it, with our clients, so, but the thing is that this just shows the power of grind, so by continuing to grind and continuing to work hard and continuing to like not be satisfied with like shortcomings, like there's a lot of really powerful good things that come out of it. Now you and I, we're both happy with our path despite the the what the we didn't think that
what you thought was a failure at the time, I guess.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Cool. And it's the same message with the people we work with too, that it's like consistency and grind, like you mentioned, with whether it's, what we're building or what your goal is in the gym or with therapy. I've heard people get, frustrated with their therapy, and you hear, you've probably had people give up on it or, give up on their PT because they're still having a little bit of pain in a few weeks in, but just like everything else, it's consistent grind, getting stronger, getting leaner, getting your performance up, improving that vertical, no matter what it is. It's like the constant message I always push here is like, no matter what program we write for you, you got to be here, 99 days out of 100 to make it work at worst.
And that's the problem, I think, with some like not good coaches, is that if you've got kids that show up that are motivated and work their asses off, then that program may succeed. Now, again, this isn't just to throw shade or clap back at bad coaches or who we think are not good coaches. That's not the point. The point actually is that sometimes it's hard for us as practitioners, whether you're a coach or a clinician, it's really hard to know how good your program is when you have just boar hunters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When these guys that just show up and just ready to just grind their teeth to dust, working really hard, So, and then sometimes it's hard for these kids to understand the nuance of what you're trying to teach them, because they just come in and they just grind dust out of the bar,
Mm-hmm.
So it is a little bit of like, it's almost like saving you from yourself. I personally would much rather have to deal with pulling the reins back on a kid versus trying to get a kid to giddy up, who just doesn't have it in them.
Because from my experience, you've got a lot more chance of success at the first thing you mentioned than the second. It can be tough. It can be tough to walk a kid back and tell them why you need more rest, or you need to go lighter on that bar today, or yada, yada, yada. But if it's not there to get in, there's no talk, there's no talking it into it.
It is so hard for me to like fake my enthusiasm when I have someone in and they just aren't there. They're just going through the motions.
I always say I can't, like, me or you can't want it more than them. As much as we want it, we can't want it more than you. So if you're in there with more energy, more drive, more desire for it than the athlete, well, then it's already a failure. Again, because you're definitely not getting under that. If we're doing speed work, you're not moving the bar with max intent if that's your attitude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not even from the warm up on, you're not doing the stuff, the movements that we need to get you rolling for that day. You're just, you're there to get what's done on the paper and get out.
Dude, that's so spot on. And the other thing is just, I think that this goes back to, I think, what we talked about the first one I joined, and that you have to have that stimulus, meaning if you actually want to create gains, you have to be pushing yourself to your limit if you want to be able to identify these gains. It's not easy. Working hard doesn't always feel good. Working hard, it feels good afterwards. It's enjoyable. You get fulfillment out of it, but it's not always fun. Now, in the moments, in between reps or in between sets, I should say, you could be really enjoying the moment. You're really enjoying what you're doing. But that really hard work itself takes intensity. It takes effort. You don't have to be a bro about it. You don't have to like be a jerk about it and slam your weights and yell and scream. And that's not for everybody. Um, uh, but you do have to have that intensity. You do have to bring it. And it's not always that enjoyable to bring that intensity.
No, it's like, it really is weird, the psyche of it. And that's such a tough part of coaching, is kind of bring it out of another person. Because we've all been there. It's almost like the devil and angel on your shoulder. You know what I mean? In the midst of a hard workout or set, it's, where, one's talking to you, really questioning if it's going to matter if you skip this, or if you, go easy on this. And it's so much harder to talk another person, into that mindset, especially kind of, newer lifters that, haven't been in the game, as long, to kind of see the effects of what happens when I do this or when I don't do this. So that's such like a lost aspect of coaching that you can't really teach. You just have to kind of talk to enough kids, enough athletes, enough, adults even, and, see what clicks for certain people. And that's why it takes a while. Like, I can never, promise anything crazy in like the first month of coaching, because I have to get to know you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Not just what you're good at with, physically, but I have to kind of get to know you and, what your mindset is. Are you rolling in on time, like really digging in, wanting to improve on everything, or are you just kind of, again, in the door, motions A to B and out?
And it just highlights, it's so funny. That's why I love doing podcasts. That's why I love our show, this show, the show that I'm on. It's just because you never know where these conversations are going to go. You know what I mean? All of a sudden we started talking about, COVID protocols, and now all of a sudden we're talking about, intensity and environment and whatnot, because that's what I think is also another really important thing, is the environment of the facility. And you have to foster that. And as a coach, and as, as an owner yourself, and Waleed as a coach, you guys have to fight very hard to create that environment.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, we're going to have fun. We're going to, you're going to want to come here, but it's not going to your buddies and playing video games. That's also fun. And you also look forward to going there, but it's a whole different ball game than what you're trying to accomplish here. And I think that that's the thing, is that to give kids the opportunity to develop that grind, you have to have that environment, because they're going to see examples of their peers, of other people. They're going to see you working with somebody else at a certain intensity. They're going to see the other kids or the person that comes in after them. They're going to see, like, as soon as they come in, it's like bang, bang, bang. They're not messing around. They put their phone down. They get to work, whatever their warm up is. So I think that bookending an experience with those examples makes such a powerful, example, a powerful, example. I can't think of a better word than that, or a different word, but it makes such a powerful example, because it's like, because you're doing what's called modeling, right? So you're modeling what proper behavior looks like. And as a coach, if you're consistent in that, that's really powerful too. As we start to get closer to our wind down here, it's also, this just highlights one of the differences between PT, because you're like, you need to give me 6 to 8 weeks in order to, it's like 4 weeks just won't cut it. You need to kind of commit to this for a couple months. And it's funny, because with PT, it's the exact opposite, in that I need to show as a clinician that we are on the right path to correcting your issue, or whatever we're addressing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing something, this isolated work in this focused effort and attention, and we're on the right track, it should improve greatly in that first month. So it's actually really kind of funny how it's flip-flopped, and how that first month is so crucial in order to make sure that we're on the right track with the right diagnosis and whatnot.
Right. Well, yeah, it's because, if you take an athlete, or just an adult that is big into fitness, working out, whatever, it's like what you're doing is such like, it's almost like the big race, the big NASCAR race is their program, and you're just kind of like their pit stop trying to get their tires,
Yep.
flipped
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah.
it's like the same thing. It's one big race, but you got to get that fixed up quick so they can get back into the race.
Yep.
So it is, yeah, it's interesting how it's two totally different worlds there, where it's like with coaching, we try to, tell them, if you bring a kid in as a freshman, it's like, it'll be what it'll be. What are you going to sign them up for? But, this is a process. If they're playing sports all through high school, they're going to develop, good movement patterns. Then they're going to get into, more of our max effort work. And then they're going to become, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and they're going to be able to do that more advanced stuff. And it's a constantly developing process. And it's not, it's not like in 12 weeks, we're going to turn them into what will be a stud athlete their senior year.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so again, it's learn the grind, kind of get on the train, find a comfy seat, because, if you want to be successful, you're not going to want to jump off at the next stop.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it really helps reinforce our roles and how we work together. My job is to get people back to you, or when I'm coaching, get my kids back on, get back in the gym, back to that part, and off my treatment table and out of the treatment room, and spend time on the floor, because again, that I say this all the time, Mike. These kids are not trying to win a medal, or people. Not just kids. I say this to everybody, but
Yeah.
you're not trying to win a medal, a gold medal in glute bridges or
Right.
clamshells. You know what I mean? Like, the goal is not to be really good doing clamshells, or furthermore, you didn't get hurt doing clamshells. So there's only so much the perfect clamshell can give you or get
Mm-hmm.
you. So someday you're going to have to get up and kind of move your own body weight, or God forbid, some, a bar,
Mm-hmm.
in order to ensure that we're translating whatever the issue is back into the wild, back into the real world, into function.
Right. And again, just kind of almost repeating myself, but that is the whole point of, what you're doing. You've got the weakest link, whether it, whatever, the stuff you decide, like the glute medius or whatever, that's limiting the entire function of the squat or your deadlift setup, or, whatever it might be, which are what, is presumably, if you're in the gym, the stuff you want to do. But I imagine a tough part for you is almost creating that intensity in your setting. Because I've done a couple of those, little things that you do, whether it be in our warm-ups or whatnot. So take a clamshell, for example. I can lay on the ground and abduct that hip, and again, take it from point A to point B. And you've probably got good ways to create this, but you have to actually like drive that and contract that with a certain amount of force. And those burn with body weight, those burn really bad. But you've got to kind of find ways. So whether you give them a little manual resistance, but that's probably got to be, you've gotten better at me because you do it more often in those settings. But like actually learning to create, you're doing a tiny little movement, but you've got to do it with even that little muscle you're working with max intensity to make a change.
Well, and the two things I'll say to that, Mike, you're right. Again, expertise. That's what people pay me for. Because I have a bunch of tools in my toolkit, and then I've learned how to use them, and hopefully I can successfully find the right one that helps you. Remember though, clamshells are not hard for people that know how to turn on the correct muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's whenever you have a pathology, you have an issue, and you can't turn on that muscle, to all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And normally that same person, you have them flip over and do the other side, and it's like, oh, okay, I get that. Wasn't that hard. That wasn't that bad. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm very crystal clear, Mike. When I talk with somebody and I'm teaching them exercises, I tell them these are hard, not because they're hard. Deadlifting and squatting is hard because it's hard. It is hard to put a bunch of weight in a bar and then lift it up and put it back down again with controlled proper form, or put it on your back and then sit down and then stand back up again. Like, that's not easy. So, instead of that, isolated exercises, a lot of the quote unquote correctives, they're hard because they're isolated. They're hard because we make them hard for the principle of the matter, to force you or to ask you to be able to turn on one specific area of your body, because that area is deficient for whatever the reason. It's stiff, it's short, it's painful, it's been injured somehow, whatever the case might be. So it's important that people need to realize that, like, you shouldn't be expected to do like clamshells in perpetuity. You know what I mean? It's like, it should take, a few weeks. It should, within a week, you should be able to turn on the muscle pretty reliably, if you're practicing it at an appropriate dosage. Within a couple weeks, you should be able to do it with enough vigor and enough intensity to where you actually can fatigue that muscle. And then within a month, there should be a difference in the hypertrophy that we're building at that area, enough to where we can go and challenge you with more functional exercises. And then obviously everybody is somewhere in between. I've talked about grammar and spelling before. Some people don't have the strength, but they're really good at utilizing muscles in dynamic exercise. So for those folks, we get them up on their feet sooner. And we're doing more dynamic, maybe like a lateral lunge or curtsy lunge or, some sidestepping stuff, agility stuff, depending on if they're an athlete or whatnot, versus other people, they might have good spelling, some of the more muscular clients that we have, but then they just move like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
They're not coordinated. It takes them forever to learn a new exercise. It's like agonizing, almost like, oh, I want to introduce a new exercise, but oh my gosh, shout out to my buddy. I have a good friend who will remain nameless, and I will text him after we are done. But he started out as my patient, and I love him to death. And he became like my best friend out in New England before I moved back home. God help him though, Mike. It took him forever for me to teach him anything new, anything. The way his brain worked didn't match well with like learning new physical skills.
Oh yeah, we've seen tons of those, in the gym, and it's you can physically see the body's confusion, when you start something new. I mean, you almost can just like see the muscles going like, like trying to figure out, just going, from place to place, and there's always a different path to getting there with an individual.
Yeah. It's actually really funny because I'm thinking at Barbell, I'm thinking the one kid who is in high school, he's the younger brother of the kid who you also train, who plays college sports, I think maybe lacrosse.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's Louis.
Yeah. So what a good kid he is. And clearly he has really worked hard to develop his skills, but everybody learns and develops at a different pace, so that's where too, again, taking it back to a topic we talked about before, we have to create an environment so kids can learn their grind, so they can figure it out, because if it's like a sink or swim kind of place, and that is right, that's the one criticism of Westside, is that sometimes they talk about like, do they just get dogs in there and just like serious, dudes, and so the guys who don't get weeded out, they just so happen to be also just serious dudes, or is it really a cultivation of dudes that happens there? So some of those conversations are interesting, but either way, most of us don't get, nothing but dudes that walk in our door, so I think that's one of those like good problems to have. You know what I mean? If somebody's criticizing you for, having 8 like 1,000-pound lifters, in your gym, but most of us are working with really wonderful, kids and recreational adults who are just trying to get themselves better for whatever their goals are.
Yeah. To tie back to, since we brought Louis up real quick, it kind of ties into what we were talking about. It's a perfect example. I'm trying to think how you said it. He would be a perfect example of a good spelling, not as good grammar guy. So, Louis is a strong kid. And I still have to tell him, like, he's stronger than he even thinks. Like, I was actually going to post it tonight. He was doing his sumo, his max effort work. His previous best was a 300. So we usually match the previous, see how you look, and then, kind of like the typical West Side method, PR, move on. So after his 300, I said, how was it? What do you think? He said, man, maybe a little more. So we went 315. He just smoked it. I mean, he said a little more, just smoked 315. Yeah. But what's crazy about Louis is, and sometimes you just get these kind of weird outliers. So he's a strong kid. All his brothers are the athletes and everything, and he knows where he sits, but he crushes vertical jump. I mean, he will smoke anybody in the gym. He's just got that like special spring in his tendons or whatever it is. I mean, I think he outdoes all the athletes in his family. So it's a funny thing, but a lot of it is just that strength transfer. But he'd be a perfect example again, of that with the spelling, but the grammar and kind of getting into the positions. But he's a good example of someone that I've worked with long enough where to an outside eye, something he does might not look perfect, but I kind of know where he sits comfortably. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I can kind of decide if something's good or no go.
And the other thing too, Mike, I talk about this, we joke about this in the clinic all the time because we see each other with a patient, and then you'll like have somebody, one of our, our colleagues watch a video, of somebody doing something. And then your colleagues, they say, wow, that is a terrible squat. And then we say something like, and this doesn't exactly apply to Louis, but we say to each other, it's like, do you know how hard we had to work to make his squat look this bad?
Yeah.
Or, exactly. It's like, if you think this looked bad, you should have seen what I started with, So it's kind of like with Louis, is that, it's an ongoing process, and he's developing and he's working his freaking tail off. And it's like, somebody who comes in who just wants to talk about social media posts and, all the fluff stuff, we'll just take a look at him and like, oh, he's not, you must not be a good coach, or he must not be trying hard. Yeah. It's like that kid is trying harder than, most of your clients ever would, but his ability to express movement patterns is not the same as his ability to generate force.
Yeah. Yeah. And those comments come from clearly people that don't work with other people. You haven't worked with a lot of the population if you think you just expect these, beautiful squats, from day one. Speaking of, you said social media, a lot of it probably comes from, you get on social media and you see whether it's influencers or the famous lifters, and, just nothing but perfect squats on Instagram highlight reels.
Dude.
But nobody's going to post their, body weight to goblet, progression going from a 7 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 or anything like that. It's just, a Larry Wheels, new PR video that you're seeing and judging everything based on that.
Exactly. It's just Instagram fitness, man. Nobody posts that stuff. Nobody thinks of, nobody is privy to all the grind, that goes into getting better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? All you see is like, the PRs and that kind of thing, and it's not all about PRs. You know what I mean? It doesn't have. Now for some kids, again, if your issue is spelling, then we need you to hit PRs. We need you to chase PRs, man. Versus if you have the spelling already, then it's like you have proven that you're an anaerobic responder. Your body responds well to new stimuli, strength stimuli. So let's challenge you in a different way. And it's also hard because we're asking you to do the thing you're not good at. Few of us like to do the thing we're not good at, right?
Yeah.
So we'd much rather kind of stay in our lane. So if you're a spelling guy or / strength guy, then, I just let me move weight, like Ronnie Coleman says, got all these heavy weights here. Somebody has got to lift them. Yeah. Might as well be me, so it's just like, let a big dog eat. But, and then there's obviously the grammar / coordination guys to where he wants to do all the med ball stuff. He wants to do all the dynamic work. You know what I mean? He just pounds that, but then you ask him to do max effort stuff and he's sore for a week, Mm-hmm. So I was one of those guys, man. My grammar was good. My spelling was not, I had such a hard time, I'd been lifting weights for like 10 years, 9 years, something like that. And I was always a big guy, over 6 foot or 6 foot tall by 8th grade. My max squat ever was 465 ever. And dude, for a while in college, I took Andro because it was still legal back then.
Yeah.
I actually took it wrong. I took only a half dose, I was like, man, this isn't really helping me all that much. I was only taking half as much as I was supposed to. Yeah. But So I worked really, really hard, played, and I only ever got up to 465, and I'm a big guy. So it's not like, I wasn't one of these like low energy. Well, I actually was for a little bit. So we'll save that for a different topic when I put myself into an energy deficit on accident, but from not eating enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been a little guy. I've always, you know what I mean? I've always put weight on well, but never built muscle well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So anyway, so the point is that just that grind applies to so many different concepts, so many different avenues.
Yeah. Well, and it's always important too, is if we're talking specifically athletics, that I'm in the weight room as a career because I love it. I mean, I was better in the weight room than I was on the field, which is why I do this. But for the athlete, it's an accessory to what their ultimate goal is. As much as I talk about how underutilized the weight room is, how athletes need more of it, it's still an accessory to their gameplay. So we've got a swimmer at Arizona State that would be considered not great with grammar. I mean, the movement patterns are tough, and that's actually can be kind of a common theme with swimming. I feel like it has to do just with the fact that they're not ground based and they're so used to just being so fluid, in the water and just, so loose. Nothing's ever close chained. I feel like that almost plays into how they kind of just look like a pool noodle on the weight room floor.
Yep.
But so it's tough to get, someone like that in good positions, but you find the things that work. It might not be what, you see as the ideal strength program in your head for these hardcore meatheads, but you find good positions to generate force. It works for them, get better at that. And then, they're not training to be back squatters or, conventional deadlifters. They're training to be swimmers. So if you can find, what works, then boom, do it.
Yep. For sure. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Any, say, I haven't seen a notification yet, but should be coming up soon. Any kind of, closing notes for this one or any other kind of little tidbits?
Yeah, no, I think this is good. Again, I like that. I guess people can give us their feedback, if they like how wandering we are or if they prefer us to stay on a topic. I prefer this, but also, as Mike knows, this fits my personality. You know what I mean? Just jumping from thing to thing. No, and I like that, again, because we do this. If we want to do one specific topic per se, then we'll put a seminar together, or, we'll go back in the weight room and just coach more kids till 9:00, but instead it's like to be able to kind of develop, not only continue this relationship, but I know I'm a better physio by talking to Mike and Waleed, and, hopefully I can have a positive impact on the way they, coach on the floor as well. So I don't know. I think just the biggest thing for this is, I know I've said it a bunch of times, but just appreciate the grind, so appreciate the opportunity to get out there and keep working on stuff, whether you're the coach or clinician, or you're the athlete yourself.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. When you appreciate the grind, and, you mentioned kind of atmosphere of the facility, playing into it. That's part of what I would really hope to build. A lot of these kids, all of them pretty much, aren't going to be in my gym forever. So what I would like, first of all, I'd like them to take a ton of the lessons we teach, with them wherever. If they, are you, lifting at your college rec, center, or with your team if you're in a college athlete. And hopefully, because when I think about it, if I think about certain days, back when we were younger, and whether it was in high school or young college, I used to have more guys around to lift with. And sometimes I just kind of, get a little nostalgic about those days with like the same crew every day. So, hopefully that this facility becomes something like that to those guys, where they take those lessons out, kind of look back to the days that, remember back in high school at Canton Barbell, the grind days, and almost like take that type of experience out of there, because that's when I know I'm kind of doing something right there beyond just the science and the reps and the, the exercise selection.
For sure.
Good stuff, man. Any, so I know you mentioned that the nutrition Q&A, I'm going to put that out.
Yep.
Whenever you have the information.
Yeah. So after we hang up, I'll post that, and we will, so what we'll do is for Canton Barbell athletes. We'll post it, and I'll probably just open it up to the region as a part of our the Fuel Move Recover, our FMR initiative. We want to do some more Q&As for local kids. So I'm going to be doing a talk for baseball and parents here coming up soon. Just some things to keep an eye out for with the beginning of the season, as well as obviously these nutrition ones to try to just, answer some questions that people might have, trying to help them feel better, because we say we want to help you excel in sports and thrive in life. It's possible to do both. You don't have to sacrifice feeling good and like being healthy just so you can work hard, or vice versa. You can still work hard, and be a good athlete, even if you are healthy and prioritizing yourself, getting enough sleep, eating well, whatnot, those things aren't mutually exclusive. So, you can follow me on social media, Michele, Ionno. Michael tagged me in this, so you'll see me there. My company is listed right here at the corner, and you can go to advancingathletics.com/FMR to see all the content that we generate there, or find our podcast anywhere you get podcasts. It's just called Fuel, Move, Recover, a performance and wellness podcast.
Good stuff, man. Yeah. As far as us, same stuff. Coach Waleed's got the youth. Schedule's going to remain the same until near the end of the school year. And then I know we're going to have a different schedule during summer, still working on that, but it'll be the same idea, same structure. And then we're introducing, starting to get kind of that group adult fitness, hoping to launch here. So I'm looking to get a group or two Tuesday, Thursday morning. And then I've got in talks with a guy that I like a lot, looking to get some stuff going in the afternoons. So any interest there, you can reach out to us on any of the social platforms or on our contact info. So awesome.
Well, have a good week.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Later.